It's day 24, another really long day. I don't know if this is why I'm having such a hard time changing or what it is. I'm just exhausted from work. My sister is still on the rampage, screaming and yelling. She is just a few years younger than me. She's 46. She has a mentality of about a 13-year-old. She doesn't have the ability to understand, comprehend a lot of things. I honestly don't believe she has much of a conscience, which sounds terrible, but she just, I don't know. I don't know what to do. She is so difficult, and my parents never really got her help. She does have her first psychiatrist appointment on the 13th. She tells me she's going to refuse to take medicine. Usually don't think medicine is the answer to a lot of circumstantial issues, like, to each their own. But for me, if your depression is circumstantial and you can do things to get through it, I don't think medicine is the answer. That's just my opinion. But for people like my sister with something's wrong and it's not circumstantial, it's a birth thing, I think it may greatly benefit her. My mom, when she was born, had a cleft palate and a cleft lip, and for years my grandparents took her for surgery after surgery after surgery, and they were pretty poor. I mean, they didn't even have indoor plumbing when she was born. She was born in 45. They lived on a farm out in the middle of nowhere in Tennessee, kind of like a Dolly Parton story, very, very poor. But they managed to get her the surgery she needed to repair her cleft palate and cleft lip. But she was always extremely self-conscious about it. And she said the kids bullied her like crazy because she didn't talk correctly. She, for things like Christmas tree, she would say chickachee, and which became kind of a joke in our house that, she knew we were lovingly joking with her, and she could say Christmas tree after a while, but growing up it was chickachee. Once she got her partial, it helped her a lot to be able to talk right. But I think just from listening to her that she was bullied so much that when they discovered something was wrong with my sister, she did not want to admit it. And like I said, we don't know what's wrong with her. We think it's one of a few things. First of all, my dad, when my sister was conceived, my dad was working at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. He ended up getting in between some machinery that he shouldn't have gotten in between without safety gear on. And there was a lot of birth defects in Oak Ridge. There's a huge history of fish being deformed in the rivers because of all the nuclear waste. If you don't know what Oak Ridge is, it is a little town in Tennessee where the Manhattan Project took place. It was what they call a secret city because the city itself was hidden. It was behind a huge fence, and they were basically working on splitting the atom there. If you've seen the movie Oppenheimer, Oak Ridge is one of the 3 cities that this took place in, and we lived in 2 of the cities with my dad's jobs. Oak Ridge being one, back when my sister was conceived. And let's see, I was like 2 to 4 years old when I lived there. And then later in life, I worked at a bookstore there. I've moved all over the place, but so we have ties to Oak Ridge. And then we also lived in Los Alamos, which is primarily where Oppenheimer took place. So that is one possibility that my dad always thought was potentially why my sister came out like she did. They knew she was delayed when she was a baby, like lifting her head, moving, speaking. Her head was very enlarged when she was born. She is still pretty big. My mom was 5'2". My dad's 5'5". I'm 5'5". My sister's almost 6 foot tall. And at one point, she went to a doctor and they said there's no indication that her bones will ever stop growing. If you look at her, you can tell even before she opens her mouth that something is wrong. But also, if it's not something to do with Oak Ridge, there's a few other possibilities. My aunt says that my mom got a double epidural because one wasn't taking, and my sister's head was so big that it caused her a lot of pain. So that potentially could be it. Another possibility that I found just a couple years ago is something called Fragile X syndrome. It says it's also known as Martin-Bell syndrome. It's a genetic disorder that affects a person's development. It's the most commonly inherited cause of intellectual disabilities. It's caused by a mutation in the Fragile X messenger ribonucleoprotein 1, FMR1 gene on the X chromosome, which can affect the amount or condition of a certain protein. Symptoms can occur if the body makes too little or no protein, or if it makes incomplete protein. Another quick definition: a genetic condition that causes a range of developmental problems, including learning disabilities and cognitive impairment. Something else that I read a while back said that a cleft palate is one of the symptoms of Fragile X syndrome. I asked the doctor when I learned about it, can you test for it? And he said, well, it's a really expensive test. He was very dismissive because she doesn't have insurance. So he said, no, why don't we send her to neurology first? Well, she's refused to go to a neurologist to find out what's wrong with her. So we just don't know yet. But something, is definitely wrong. She was in special education her whole life. And when trying to get her help after my mother passed, I called the high school that she was last at. She was in special education, got a special education degree. And they sent some of the paperwork that they had on her, which her IQ is 70, which would be on the high end, but certainly low for neurotypical, I guess they call it today. The average person is around 100 IQ. So, and one of the other things they said in this high school review was that if it benefits her, she will do it. If it doesn't benefit her, she won't do it. She has trouble getting along with people, won't do what she's told, all this stuff. So anyway, she's held a few jobs and she always has trouble getting along with people. She got fired from her last job about 12 years ago because she made some comments about somebody's sexual orientation. Absolutely horrible that she would do that. But she says somebody set her up. Nothing is ever her fault. She doesn't take responsibility or ever understand when she does wrong. It's like she doesn't have an idea of right and wrong. She lies all the time, even about little things. So because of her behavior is so bad. I mean, she's not just learning disabled, but she has a temper, oh my gosh, yelling, screaming, hitting, etc. Her behavior is terrible. I would guess she's got some kind of explosive rage something, because it just is, she gets enraged and becomes scary, and she's huge compared to me. So my mom has always taken care of her. And before she died, when she got cancer, she said, I think you're going to do her wrong and put her in a home and all this. So I am torn between wanting to do the right thing and care for her. I'm not equipped, though. But I'm afraid if she were to go into a home, with her behavior problems, she'd have a hard time. She'd have a really hard time. I've been told call the police on her when she's hit and stuff. But I've seen what happens when police come and they don't understand that there's a mental disability. So, the guilt I would feel to voluntarily say, no, I can't do this anymore is huge. If it came down to I just couldn't do it, that's one thing, but voluntarily, I feel like I'd be letting my mom down. I feel like morally it's the right thing to do to take care of her, even though financially I can't do it right now. I certainly can't deal with her behavior problems at all. I mean, I'm her sibling, so there's that dynamic there that is going to be hard to ever care for her properly because of that. I don't want to ever be her guardian because several reasons. First, the financial responsibility. It's hard just to put food on the table, but she needs so much additional care, and she runs up hospital bills like crazy. She's in the hospital at least once a year for the past few years and run up thousands and thousands of dollars, and I cannot be financially responsible for that. And secondly, she lies so much about everything. If you ask her to do a load of laundry or clean up her dishes or whatever, she calls it abuse, and she thinks she's Cinderella. All she does is sit at home, play video games, watch TV in her bedroom, and I just don't know what to do. So that's part of my situation. It's really trying. I definitely couldn't have any kind of relationship or freedom with her around. Just, we've left her as a family when my mom and dad were alive, and we've had to take a trip overnight a couple times, but any more than a day, she's freaking out and there's problems. So, she could never live on her own. She doesn't understand money or, have the ability to pay bills or anything like that. So, yeah, the constant meltdowns and temper tantrums and throwing fits, it's just a lot on me. She has a mentality between about 3 and 13, depending on the topic and depending on the day and ability to understand things. Of course, her body is 46 years old. She's got terrible diabetes and wounds on her feet that won't heal. She's had gangrene in them. She's had MRSA and several other things over the years on these wounds because she's diabetic. She won't eat right. Her diabetes is out of control. She's on insulin, she's on metformin, but she won't do right with what she eats, and the disease has been really bad on her. Last time she was in the hospital with her toe, they ended up Baker acting her. I had nothing to do with it. Baker acting in Florida, where we're at, is when somebody is a danger to themselves or others. It's normally an involuntary 48-hour hold. They renewed it like 3 times, and they told me that they were going to get a bed in a psych hospital. Then they never transferred her to the psych hospital. They just let her go. And because we are not technically guardians, we had no say in the matter. I came home one day from work and my dad had just picked her up, and things were a lot worse for a while after she got home, and there was no help. Anyways, so that's what I'm dealing with, and I'm not equipped to deal with it, honestly. It's hard. It's really hard. So that is one of the things going on with me. She's in there yelling at one of the kittens right now. So, all right, that's day 24.